As you know, medical marijuana laws are being approved across the country. And in California, we have medicinal marijuana approved, various types of it for various reasons. And in Illinois, yesterday, the governor, Pat Quinn there, signed a law that allows children and adults with epilepsy and who suffer seizures to soon be allowed to use marijuana to ease their symptoms. And this is a big deal, and it's something we've actually discussed on this program some time ago with the founder of Mallory'sHope.org. We'll find out more about that in a moment. Dr. Thomas Minahan joins us live now. And Dr. Minahan, thanks again for coming on the program. You've been a proponent of this sort of thing for some time, haven't you?
Phil and Chris, thank you for having me. Yeah, just under a year now. I've been a huge proponent.
Have you had any input whatsoever in the law in Illinois?
No, none at all.
But you're familiar with it?
I do know the bill, I think it was 2636, which was approved yesterday. Started out in January going through their committees, and they pulled it off in 6 months.
Explain why this is, and perhaps you could use the experience with your daughter here just to get our audience who perhaps doesn't know your story. Explain why this is important.
Well, there's kids with epilepsy, and there's a small niche of kids with epilepsy that are intractable. They've tried not one or two, but like in my daughter's case, about a dozen drugs that didn't work. We looked at surgery with my daughter. Imagine going in a kid's head before you try some benign medication. We looked at everything with my daughter, and kids in Illinois, too. There's 3 million people in the U.S. with epilepsy. About a third of those are intractable. In other words, nothing seems to make them seizure-free. So when nothing works, and in my daughter's case, nothing worked, and we were going to try a very toxic medication that had a side effect of death. So we actually looked at it. And here I am. A year ago, you'd asked me, I'd be like, it's a ruse for recreation. And I'd be laughing at this whole thing. But I'm a little different today.
Yeah. Well, when you were actually considering a possible side effect of death, then that means things must have gotten pretty scary at certain points. Can you recount for us any of those stories that brought you to that brink?
Well, a year ago, she was at swim lessons. Most of my daughter's seizures are at nighttime. But we watched her like a hawk at swim lessons, and she didn't come off the bottom. And I'm like, is she goofing around? Or I dive in, I pull her off the bottom, and she sucked in quite a bit of water. Almost lost my daughter to a drowning about a year ago. We've tried about every drug and drug combination, and we really don't know in the world of epilepsy how bad it is when a kid takes like 3 different medications at one time. There's no studies out there that are looking at these 3, and then how about these 4 and stuff like that. So we were flying back to the East Coast, same hospital you were just talking about, Johns Hopkins. She seasoned 5 times on the way to that center, twice on the airplane. They didn't want us on the flight. And that's when the expert back there suggested this toxic medication. He mentioned cannabis, but I kind of laughed when he said it. You weren't there yet. Well, no. I mean, intellectually, when someone tells you cannabis, and I'm a conservative physician, very conservative physician. I think most people are going to think people smoke it because that's what's seen out there. At the Anaheim Convention Center recently, they had what they call a medical cannabis conference, Kush Fest. If you go online and look at this, it's hard to respect that as medicine. And so I just assumed people were smoking it. I was thinking, am I going to have my 11-year-old smoke? And that was what really crossed my mind initially. I'm like, nah, it can't be. And I researched it, and actually, no, it's an oil, and she takes it 3 times a day. She was seizing 30 to 40 times a month. One night she seized 12 times. And last August, I remember driving to work one morning, and she had seized 6, 7, 8 times that night. And I actually said to God, if she were to seize the next time and to die, I'd almost be okay with it. It was just so bad. But so we looked at the marijuana. We had nothing to lose, and we started on this oil, and you're taking a chance with your kid. My kid's the guinea pig, and it's been phenomenal. Yeah. So it worked. Months she's had. Yeah. She seized once in the last almost 4 weeks. And are there other benefits to this as well? Is she eating regular, keeping her food down, all of that? Yeah, there are people talk about the munchies. In this chemical that she takes, it's very low THC. There is some in there. So if you do a drug screen on my 11-year-old, it's going to show positive for THC, which gets you high. But there's another chemical in there called cannabidiol, which is thought to have the anti-epilepsy properties. I'm not waiting 10 years for the studies to come out to prove that this is good for her. I'm doing it now. I don't have 10 years to wait. But the cannabidiol is thought to stop the seizure, but also give some other properties. We put her back in school about a week after starting the oil. It's the first time in about 3 years that we've had her back in school. And she has this alertness about it we haven't seen ever.
Dr. Minahan, Chris Martin has a question for you here.
Hey, Doctor. I remember the first time we had you on, and you told some real heartfelt stories, and you got myself and a lot of us listeners interested in this adventure that you're on. And I'm wondering if you see this approval in Illinois as a catalyst, and I just said Illinois, but as a catalyst for other states jumping on board and using these cannabinoids for epileptic children, like maybe even California.
I would hope so. In California, there's a bill going through by Lou Correa out of Orange County, 1262. That's almost there, and I just heard there's some blocks by union stuff getting involved with this. But the bill makes it more legitimate, makes it more medicine. Recreation is a different animal, and I think that's the biggest block to most states in the country. Is the association that people go with. You're just trying to use this as a step to legalization. Now, that's a different animal I want to touch. But I think it is a catalyst, and if you get enough states in the union that will buy into this, maybe the federal government will. I've tried to talk to people from the House of Representatives, and then there's a guy actually out of Illinois I actually kind of know somewhat well. And the conversation we had is that for these conservative people, this is political suicide to vote yes on a bill for marijuana, because the people just don't know that there is truly something there. Granted, a lot of people get high with it and they abuse it and stuff, and they say they have back pain. They don't. I get that. But there is some use here. There is something definitely in this plant.
So here in California, I mean, obviously you're treating your daughter Mallory. Are you treating her legally above board, or do you have to kind of blur the lines a little bit? And as a doctor, perhaps you can do that.
No, we do. I treat her legally. I went and got a card for her, shall we say, or a recommendation from a physician. This is where it's hard to take it seriously. The physician, and she's a functional 11-year-old kid, she gets it when someone says something. The guy dropped the F-bomb 4 times in front of us.
Wow.
How do you take a physician seriously? So we put her on a strain of oil, and it's called AC/DC. Again, hard to take it seriously.
Yeah.
The oil shows up, and it shows up in a bottle, and you can't really smell it until you open it. But it showed up one time, and the envelope was so impregnated with the smell of weed, I really questioned the mindset of people packaging my daughter's medicine. I mean, you really question this stuff. It has shown up, and it's mislabeled. One time, it said there was very little THC in it, less than 1 milligram per milliliter, but it was a ton of THC in it. The company apologized, but imagine if this was someone's heart medicine.
Yeah. And so this is where the call for standardization in the industry and regulations and all of that, perhaps that argument makes sense when you talk about this kind of a product.
You got it. The incidence of death in an epileptic is 20 times, spontaneous death is 20 times the average population. It is not normal for a dad to check on his 11-year-old in the morning to see if she's still alive.
Yeah.
My wife and I do that. It's not normal. But kids die in their sleep probably when they seize. This is huge. This is a life-saving medicine. And I'm a very pro-life guy, and for those who are pro-choice, don't hate me. I'm pro-life, and to me, this is a pro-life issue. And I've addressed it with Christian conservative groups. I've met with some people who will actually talk with me because of who I am. And that's what I think has to move this along. You need the Christian conservatives, or the right wing, shall we say, to buy into this.
Does California need its version of the law that was signed by Illinois Governor Pat Quinn yesterday?
You know, in California, my understanding of the law is that this adds kids to the mix. Kids have been legal in California, and they are. It just in California, the bill going through California now is trying just to make this thing show up like a medicine as best we can without. It's illegal on a federal level, but on a state level, it's just trying to make it legitimate, truly medicine. As in the words Lou Correa said, we got to make this real medicine.
Mallory'sHope.org, and we have a link on the links page at philhewlettandfriends.com. Dr. Thomas Minahan, thank you very much for commenting on the law in Illinois and what's happening here in California, and continued good luck and success with your daughter, Mallory.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, thank you.